This Friday, January 31st, we are doing another Patreon live event, State of the Dumpster Fire. And I'll be honest, I'm probably going to have a meltdown. And I need you guys to talk me off a ledge. I need you to get your best lying hats on, your best untruthfulness voice. And as we chat live on this coming Friday, 8:30 ET, not ET like the alien, but the time.
Well, you never know.
That's true, Caitlin. Caitlin knows how things go around here. I look like ET. I look like ET. So yeah, at 8:30 you'll see ET. That's me, and that's also 8:30 Eastern time, which is 7:30 Central, 6:30 Mountain. 5:30. Okay, whatever. I can't, whatever. Look it up. Just Google it if you want to know what it is in your time zone. The replay will be available if you miss it. If this is the first episode you're ever hearing, I had a catastrophe with my face. And, at least I'm not in a career that like entirely depends on me being able to smile and show my face. That is also why, for those of you watching on YouTube, I am wearing an eye patch and a mask. So I've got the whole pirate chic thing going on. It's just a whole situation, guys. And for the sake of my privacy and not giving my haters free entertainment, I am only revealing my face and talking about what is going on my Patreon. So patreon.com/thisisjen. And if you join, you can also get access to the event, the replay of the event from January 17th, 2025. Look that up. The January 17th video, I revealed my face and I talked about what is going on. And so now, this coming Friday, the 31st, I need you guys to lie to me and tell me that it looks better. But no, Jen, I think it's really, no, I think your career is fine. No, you're totally fine. Patreon.com/thisisjen. What's amazing is I did a video about this for people like not podcast listeners who don't really know I have a Patreon or anything. They've never heard me say it. And I realized I put it in all caps, patreon.com/thisisjen. And in all caps, it looks like it's TH ISIS Jen. And I kind of look like I am in ISIS with like wearing a black mask and a black eye patch. So patreon.com/IsisGen is where you go to join and see the videos, and you can see how hideous I am. I mean, because one of the reasons I'm not doing this on YouTube, I'm not showing my face publicly, is because I just know, I know just how coal black the lump of coal is where my heart should be. I know what a terrible person I am. Can you imagine if this happened to one of the people who I dislike? If this happened to one of my nemeses? It would be like every time I'm having a bad day, I would just pull up the video of their silly face and laugh and laugh and laugh. So I'm not doing it. I'm not giving them that joy. And, or if they do, they have to pay for it. They have to get on my Patreon. Also, I've realized some people don't know what Patreon is. Patreon is just a service. It's just a platform that lets creators offer premium content that is paid. That's all it is. And so they process the payments, and like if you unsubscribe, they lock you out of access and whatever. So it just, any creator can get on there. You could start a Patreon. It's where you offer premium content. Patreon.com/IsisGen. What we're talking about today is this friend of mine who's into woo-woo hippie stuff suggested that maybe one of the reasons that in particular, my right eye and this side of my face has been affected is because I'm too much in my masculine energy. I think that's what the doctor thinks too. Like, Jen, have you been living in the feminine? Have you been living in your feminine energy? And I just feel like that theory couldn't possibly hold any weight, because obviously I'm the most feminine woman ever. Listen to my voice. I'm only occasionally am I confused with a man on the phone. Only once did it happen that I was showing my mother-in-law videos of our kids when they were little. They were playing in the backyard, and I was talking to the kids. I was like, "Hey, come back over here to, don't play in the sandbox." And my mother-in-law, who was always very protective of the kids, she was like, "What man did you let video these kids. And I was like, where's a man? Is there a man in the video? She's like, no, the man talking on the video. What man is videoing our kids? I'm like, that's me. That's me. So I don't know. I guess she thought that I invited James Earl Jones over to take some videos of my kids. So no, I'm the most feminine woman in the world. I yell on my podcast about controversial issues. Like what is not feminine about that? So I've been exploring this idea of the different ways to be feminine, because I do think that for women it is important to foster feminine energy, and I believe that for men it is important to foster masculine energy. I very much think that's actually really important, and I think it will be hard for you to feel good about yourself, feel attractive. And again, I mean attractive, like even if you're not dating, everybody wants to be attractive, even if you are 80 years old and have been married 60 years. I mean, attractive meaning you just kind of feel like you are putting your best essence out there that attracts people to you. It makes them want to be in your presence, not in like a hookup culture way, but they're just like, wow, I like being around that woman. I like being around that man. And I don't think that you can achieve that unless you are in the proper energy of your gender. But for some of us, we're not going to be a classic girly girl. You know, I'm just never like, I haven't worn a dress in over a year. I mean, I feel like a drag queen when I put a dress on. It just doesn't feel, I mean, that's actually, I mean, drag queen, it kind of works when I mean, it probably works less well on me. I don't know. I can't do it. Like and you know, again, I don't sound super feminine. I'm so freakishly tall that you know what it is? I love it how this podcast is, you know, I just kind of think of my points like as they come to me live in the recording. You know what it is, guys? I am 6 feet tall. My pants inseam is 37 inches. And for those of you listening outside of the U.S., I don't know. I only know freedom units. So you'll have to Google. Caitlin, would you Google inches to centimeters?
Yeah.
And because this is a welcoming podcast. It's welcome of all people. So I have a 37-inch inseam, and that's actually longer than most men's inseams. Even clothes that supposedly cater to tall women they're not usually long enough for me. But and I don't know, talk amongst yourselves why I don't just wear skirts and dresses then, because I can never get pants that are long enough. That's got to be the neurodivergence coming in there. And I wear size 12 shoes. So guys, my feet are actually bigger than my husband's. And I am taller than my husband. I am 3 inches taller than my husband. A little hard to feel classically feminine. You know, I saw like when Ariana Grande got married, there was this picture of her. Oh, I think that marriage ended. Well, R.I.P. But it was cute for a while. There was this really adorable picture of her husband picking her up, I guess, at the wedding. And she was just this tiny little thing. Like Caitlin's very petite. I mean, just so cute and tiny and feminine. And he just scooped her up, and like it was just so easy. My husband would need a lever and pulley system to pick me up. He'd need like 4 guys to help him, and they would all be like kind of lumbering around, and everyone would fall down like a bunch of dominoes. It just wouldn't work. So my husband could never pick me up. Like there's also the romantic, you know, the wife falls asleep on the couch, and so the husband picks her up and takes her up. So my husband would be in a wheelchair if he tried to do that with me. I'm just a large person. I mean, look, I have large hands. I have large feet. But again, I can't borrow my husband's shoes. Like when we were on his boat, I couldn't wear his boat shoes because they're too petite for me. You guys, my husband's shoes are too petite for me. And he would, you know what, he's here. He might hear, he's probably about to burst in this room. My husband is not a petite man. If you've ever seen him, like he's a manly man. Like he's not like a skinny, scrawny guy. And so I'm just trying to say that I have struggled to feel classically feminine, but I think being feminine in some kind of way is important. Caitlin, what's my inseam in centimeters?
Oh, 93.98. So do we round to 94?
94 centimeters.
Yeah.
People, Australians, Brits, do you understand the hell that is my life? And I know people are going to leave YouTube comments like, but seriously, Jen, just like wear skirts if you can't get pants that are long enough. I wasn't going to say this, but I do think it's important that you guys know just how neurodivergent I am. I don't like feeling my like skin touch. Like I would, and pantyhose aren't thick enough, and it just like bothers me. And I need, like, I have to wear jeans or slacks all the time. But then I complain about not being able to find pants that are long enough. And if you're a new listener, welcome. This is actually everything you need to know about my personality. And again, size 12 shoes. I mean, it's just, shoe shopping for me is hell. It's hell because, first of all, the display shoes are always in petite women's sizes. So the display shoe will be a size 5. And it looks adorable. It's so cute. It's a little heel. Ooh, so it's all tiny and petite. And I'm like, hey, do you guys have size 12? And they're like, oh, shut up. We want people to think hot women shop here. Like, shut up. You know, it's always like, oh, like, please do not shop at the store. You know, you're embarrassing us. And I have actually, this is a true story. It actually happened that someone thought I was a trans woman. I mean, and not the worst guess. Like, I understand. They thought I was, they were like, listen, we really respect, like, you're welcome here. So now I actually get some credit for it, you know?
Yeah.
Now, because it used to be like, oh, this is embarrassing that you wear a size 12. And now it's like, we welcome diversity. So they bring out the size 12 shoe, you know, they get the forklift, like beep, 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 with my massive shoe box. And it's hideous. It's a monstrosity. Like, all of the proportions are wrong. And it's like, oh, that's not cute. You know, that looks like it belongs in a modern art museum. There's nothing. It's like, where's the cute little delicate shoe that I saw in size 5? So guys, I just wanted to give you my street cred on this subject. When I tell you that not every woman has a natural, classically feminine essence, I just want you to know that I've put in my Malcolm Gladwell 10,000 hours on this subject of not being a classically feminine woman. And I get so jealous when I see petite women. Like, I go to I shop at any clothing store. The cutest stuff is always in their petite section. I'm like, oh, I love that. That is so cute. And it's like, I couldn't get one thigh in those slacks. I'm too huge for it. And I just get so jealous when I see like a TikTok or something of women slipping their tiny little feet into their husband's, big shoes. And they're like, oh, I'm wearing my boyfriend's oversized shirt. I'm like, yeah, it would be like, that would be a crop top on me if I wore my husband's shirts. And I've never been picked up by a man. Never. I wish, if he had like a bulldozer or something, just kind of get me initially off the ground, maybe we could make it work. But so that's just not been part of my life experience, and honestly it makes me really sad. And then you add to that then bring motherhood into it, because I'm also little neurodivergent and more like kind of a math, like, analytical person, just dissociate all the time, like not fully part of reality most of the time. And not good at cleaning, not good at cooking, just nothing housework related is for me. Couldn't care less about keeping the house clean. I do because, the law, but I'm not one of those people who's like, oh, you can't set that glass there. Like, couldn't care less. So I have felt inferior to other women my whole life. And it only got worse in motherhood. And it only got worse also once I went from atheist too Catholic, because then, you know, you've got your Catholic influencers who, some of them definitely feel like there's just kind of one way to be a woman and one way to express the feminine. And so I've really struggled with, what does that look like to be feminine in a way that is still feminine, still legitimately, you have a legitimate feminine essence there, but also is true to me. Like imagine if I tried to do the deferential, you know, like, oh my gosh, I'm just like, I didn't even know how I would imitate it, you know? Wait, hang on, guys, I'm going to try. My friend and I at lunch we were trying this because we were talking about getting in our feminine energy. And I was like, okay, I think feminine women, they speak softly and they're very demure. Yeah, that was a TikTok trend. They're very demure. They're very mindful. So, all right, I guess this is what my podcast would sound like if I were like a petite. Imagine me being petite too. I want you to imagine that I have size 6 feet and some very petite shoes on, and my husband just carried me into the podcast studio because I'm so tiny. Okay, so it would be like this. It would be like, hi friends. Already it's falling apart. If you're listening on audio, you've got to know that I'm saying this with an eye patch on. Hi, friends. Okay, I'm gonna pull it together. Okay. Hi, friends. I was just sitting here with my cup of herbal tea that does not have any vodka in it. And I just wanted to share with you some reflections that I was prayerfully discussing with my husband. And I didn't finish because he wanted to talk. And so I respectfully stopped talking. And I didn't, get uppity and shout, why are you interrupting me, and throw something down and say I never get to talk like a mouthy woman. What I didn't do that. I kept my silence and I sipped my herbal tea. I don't know. My husband would laugh so hard if he heard that. Caitlin has, you know what? Caitlin, okay, well, you know what? There's a related subject here also of respecting your spouse's energy, for those of you who are dating or married. And I actually think that's really important. And I do respect my husband as the man of the house. And I really do. I see him as like the head of the household. And I do think that there are ways in which he needs to respect me and whatever feminine energy I'm bringing to the table. And I need to respect him. But Caitlin, do you remember the time that I was, my husband was reviewing my comedy. We had pulled up a set on the TV and you were coming over and I had told you just let yourself in. So you walked in and my husband and I were having a bit of a dialogue about his opinions and my opinions on his opinions. And didn't you say, what did you say? You said you felt like you might need to leave.
Yes.
Was I being demure?
Definitely not.
My husband had just said to me, he's like, that bit is not funny at all. And you come across as like just insecure and like kind of an amateur there. And Caitlin walked in when I offered my reflections in response to that. And was I in my feminine energy? Let me just put it this way. Caitlin has seen the unguarded Fulwiler moments. And so that is another thing that my husband and I have had to work out, because he doesn't speak to me like a lot of men speak to their wives. There is much more of a direct, blunt, we've had men get in the duck and cover position when they observe how my husband talks to me. And so that has been, and by the way, I don't mean, I don't want anyone like calling 911. I don't mean it's like nasty or disrespectful. I mean, like, it can be very businesslike. Like if a lot of men had wives who were stand-up comics, they might be afraid to say, that's just not funny at all, and I'm really bored at this point. They might massage that a little bit before they delivered that particular piece of advice to their wives. But that is not how we speak to each other. So that's kind of a related subject of not only how do each of us find our gender's proper energy in a way that's authentic to us, but then how do you respect your spouse in a way that's authentic. So that is the main topic for today. As usual, we set up the main topic at the beginning of the show. Then we hit some intro topics. Then we get to the main topic towards the end of the podcast. And I want to remind you, patreon.com/thisisjen or patreon.com/IsisGen. Way more appropriate now. We have a live event this Friday, January 31st, 8:30 p.m. East, and you will want to join us for that. I'm serious. I'm having a meltdown. It's not a good situation. I'm really relying on you guys for moral support. So join the Patreon at every level and you can be part of it. You can also watch the replay if you're hearing this after this Friday or you can't make it live. The replay will be up. I might delete all these replays later. So if you're curious, I would join pretty fast. And again, Patreon makes it really easy to jump off if at any point you're like, the content's too good. I just can't take this much good content. You're not like locked in, Okay. So this is the Jen Fulwiler Show. Never a dull moment around here. I can tell you that. I am your host, Jen, not an ISIS member, despite what I look like. I am a stand-up comic, best-selling author, and mom of 6. This is the podcast where you learn the art of the village hustle. That's being a hot girl boss or hot boy boss. Who knows that love and family and community are the foundations of all true success? We publish new episodes every single Wednesday morning. Our lovely producer is Caitlin White. And once again, you can get bonus content, patreon.com, IsisGen. And we have a big announcement. Hit the big announcement sound effect, the special one. Yes.
Yeah.
Just for the big announcement. I finally have my spring tour locked down. Yes. And we have, yes. You learned last week also, I am filming my comedy special. I'm still doing my spring tour. Even if this stuff with my face does not get better, I don't care. I'm at least doing the spring tour. That might be the last tour I ever do if my face doesn't get better. But I would not cancel shows for that. I mean, I know people, they buy plane tickets, they get Airbnbs. I would never cancel a show for just like, oh, I don't like the way I look. Look, if I ever cancel a show at the last minute, that you need to pray for me. I mean, it means like I've been kidnapped or something. So, because I really respect you guys buying tickets to my shows. So jfcomedytour.com is where you get your tickets, and I have the official list of cities: Buffalo, Royal Oak, which is Detroit, Philadelphia, Richmond, Virginia Beach, Denver, that's where we're filming the first special, Plano, Tyler, Texas, you can't take Tyler, Texas off the list, Columbus, Ohio, that got rescheduled. That was not me. I had nothing to do with it. The club had to reschedule that date. So check jfcomedytour.com on that date, Columbus, Ohio. And then New York City, I am planning to film another comedy special there. So New York City, Columbus, Tyler, Plano, Denver, Virginia Beach, Richmond, Philadelphia, Royal Oak, which is Detroit, and Buffalo. I'm very, very excited. Denver will almost definitely sell out. New York will almost definitely sell out. Royal Oak, that'll probably be close. Virginia Beach and Tyler. Listen, I got to be honest, guys. We are still building Fulwiler Nation, I think, in Tyler, Texas. Probably, I don't think the line will be around the block to get in that show. I think it's going to be pretty easy. Also, Virginia Beach. If you've ever wanted to just chat with me in person, I think I might just be sitting down at your table because you'll be the only people there. Also, Buffalo. Little concerned. Little concerned about Buffalo too. But we will. Hey, we're going to make it work. We'll figure stuff out. And jfcomedytour.com is where you get your tickets. They are all on sale. And yeah, look, if my face isn't better, then, it will have a little bit of a traveling circus freak show kind of vibe. Maybe you guys can just stare at me for an hour instead of me like doing comedy. I mean, that's less work for me. So that, that could work too. But you guys, you know what? We're going into my Patreon now, but I'm going to talk more. I'm going to get your advice at this Friday's live event. But I'm flipping out about like, what if my face is not better by the Denver filming? I'm losing my mind. But again, I won't cancel. So we're just doing it. I'll just look insane. I'll just look crazy at the Denver filming. Anyway, get your tickets. They're also linked in the show notes. Now, okay, so speaking of which, so I was at an appointment today to try to deal with this latest situation. And this is my life. I mean, this is my life. This is exactly the kind of thing that happens to me. So these two people, the receptionist and a guy, were talking about the football games from this past weekend. You may have heard there was some controversy surrounding the Chiefs and Bills game. And I have a show coming up in Buffalo. So listen, I'm on the Bills side on this one. I don't have a Kansas City show anytime soon, so I can say this. So these two people were the receptionist and the guy. They were not talking to me. They were talking to each other about this. But I felt passionately about it. I was looking for someone to talk to for because I was just. I had a lot of opinions on it. So they were going into not only the Chiefs-Bills game, but there was some controversy regarding the refereeing. A lot of people thought that the referees were very biased in favor of Kansas City, and that even is maybe why the Bills lost. And listen, Kansas City people, I love your city, and I even love the Chiefs. But some of those calls were pretty crazy. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Maybe I'm wrong, whatever. And if you disagree with me, you will be delighted about what I'm about to say next. So I just, I wanted a bit of levity in my life, and I was not wearing my ISIS eye patch outfit here because it's too weird in public. I mean, it's like I can look like a freak one way or the other. So I just and I'm in a doctor's office, so people are probably like, oh, I hope that is not contagious when when I sit down. I was like, yeah, it's a freak show at the doctor's office. That's fine. So my face was completely just like nothing covering it, and so they were really having a nice, rollicking, jovial conversation where they were talking about the game, and I stepped up into their conversation. I do occasionally have spasms of extroversion, which I always regret, always. And I said, first of all, I kind of startled them, because again, my huge hulking 5'11", 6 feet tall presence, and I had heels on, so I'm like 6'1", like, oh, hey guys, like, stepping in. And so in the middle of their rollicking, jovial conversation, I said, oh my gosh, those refs turned me into the Joker. And then I tried to smile because I still haven't broken that habit. Friends, I do look like the Joker right now, especially when I try to smile. And I delivered it in sort of a deadpan way. Now, see, I used to have a smile that was, nice, like charming. It made people want to hang out with me. I have been told that was one of my better features, that I had a very nice smile. So I did a real big smile because it's just habit. But now I look like a complete freak and an actual Gotham villain. So when this huge albino redhead comes hurtling herself into the conversation and is like, those refs turned me into the Joker, and then does her Joker smile, they were startled. They were like, they did turn her into I mean, I think they thought that I actually self-harmed. I think they thought I self-harmed in response to that game, and it's like, she is actually turning into a villain. And then they had no more laughs, no more joy. They were like, the receptionist was like, okay then, Mr. Anderson, did you want to schedule your next appointment? Like, I killed their nice time. The non-freaks, the nice normal people, they were trying to have a nice time. And then I roll up and I'm like, oh, I'm the Joker. And they're like, she is the Joker. And now everyone's scared. So it's a big transition, guys, to go from being considered kind of an attractive person to being like the hideous freak. Like I am still, we'll talk about it on Friday, patreon.com, ISIS Jen. It'll never get old. Never. So let's talk about one of the things I've been doing to try to help my hideousness is there is something called hyperbaric therapy. The idea is, so first of all, when my doctor told me about it, all she said is that this is a therapy where you're put under pressure. You breathe oxygen under pressure, and being under pressure it helps the oxygen more deeply penetrate your tissues. So people who have done skin grafting, different surgeries, also it's pretty helpful. They found like brain injuries, things like that. Whenever you have deep tissue that needs some extra oxygen, hyperbaric therapy can be really, really helpful for that. So that's all I knew. She was like, yeah, go get some hyperbaric therapy. So I went down to the local hyperbaric therapy place because we live in Austin, Texas. So there are like 10 of them because all the ice bath bros. Can you even imagine? Oh, they're like just overjoyed at this, latest way to waste time doing health stuff. So they love it. Ice bath bros love this kind of thing. And, but this is actually like, there are actual peer reviewed studies that it does stuff. So I show up to, it's a cool place. Like I have come to like it, but I show up and it has kind of a warehouse vibe, and I see these tubes and it's all dark in the little warehouse. And so Caitlin, can you pull up just the picture, no video, just the picture of JF on youtube.com, or search, probably the easiest thing is if you pull up YouTube, search YouTube for Fulwiler 239. That's why I give these episode numbers, so they're easy to find across platforms. Fulwiler 239. As I always say, it'll either be like 239 reasons why I hate Jen Fulwiler, or it will be this episode. So this is 239, right, Caitlin?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So do you guys see this? Do you see this? So how many minutes in if you need to skip to it on YouTube?
33.
About 33. Mm-hmm. So I saw these and I was like, oh, this must be, man, they've got crazy air conditioning in here. These must be their air conditioning units. I imagined that I would sit in a nice relaxing chair and have an oxygen mask on. And I hadn't really thought through, where does the pressure come from? Perhaps a relaxing massage? I didn't know. And I'm looking at those tubes like, what are they? Are they splitting the atom here? Like, what's going on? And so the guy was like, okay, we'll have you in chamber number 4 right here. And I was like, oh, you perceive that I am going in one of these. And then I looked and I saw shoes sitting outside of each metal tube. And it was so creepy because like there's no noise, and for whatever reason, I guess just to freak people out as much as possible, they don't light the warehouse very well. So the sun was setting, it was kind of dark, and you can hear the hum of the chambers working. So it's this buzzing, and you don't see anyone because these are hyperbaric tube chambers, but you can see their shoes outside of each one. And I tried getting in one. So let's pull up a video. So I had no idea what the video of. First, let's go to the video of the door shutting. So let's see. Yeah, see if that's the video.
Mm-hmm. It is. You want me to play
it? Yeah, just play it. So look at this. Look, you have to pull this up. Search YouTube, Fulwiler 239. You have to see this. I mean, or jfonyoutube.com takes you right to my channel. Click on the podcast tab, 239. I just want you to look at this. Do me a favor. I really want you to see this. Play it again, Caitlin. You're in this dark chamber, and the guy shuts the door.
Thank you.
Here it is. Now it gets dark because it's shut.
Are there any windows or anything?
There are 2 tiny circular windows, and that's it. They're very tiny. But here's the thing. Because they keep it dark in there, if you're in there after the sun sets, you can't really see anything out the windows because it's dark. And if you notice, when you pull this up on YouTube, which you must, you can't open it from the inside. There's no way to get out. There is no way to get out. This is, I mean, just imagine the Ocean Gate sub. You're trapped in the Ocean Gate sub, basically. And so think about this. Because they put you under pressure, even if it were an emergency, I mean, even if, let's say, you started vomiting or like there's a tornado right outside the window or whatever, you can't get out. You can't get out immediately because you're under pressure. You would get the bends if they just threw open the door. So it's like a 20-minute depressurization process, even if it's an emergency, even if for some massive reason you've got to get out. If you're having a full panic attack, you'll be having that panic attack for 20 minutes.
Ooh, that sounds terrible.
Yeah. So, yeah. Okay. So I'm doing this all the time. Like I'm doing this like 6 days a week. So, okay. Well, first of all, let me tell you, the first time that guy shut that door, I started screaming and I left. I left. I was like, nope, not you guys aren't going to get me. Absolutely not. But now I'm back into it and I've been doing it like 5 times a week. So, sorry. Excuse me. Okay. So I've been doing hyperbaric therapy to treat my face. And my friend was making fun of me for being claustrophobic. This therapy is where you get locked in the Ocean Gate sub for 2 hours at a time. And she was making fun of me saying like, that's so cute that you're claustrophobic. I don't think claustrophobia is a phobia. I think that's just being normal. I think that people who are not claustrophobic, they have a phobia of being alive. I think that is the phobia. Because like who would play Caitlin? Okay, now play the video of getting in the tube. Okay,
I've got
look,
all these people now who are curious. They're like, "What are you doing?
Now,
You're going
if
in a
you-
tube? What? Why?"
for those of you who, like, let's say you're banned from YouTube, and you just can't pull it up. Imagine getting in the Ocean Gate sub, but it's not that big. It's smaller than the Ocean Gate sub. Listen, if that does not strike fear in your heart, that it locks from the outside, your life is in these employees' hands. What if they leave? Think about that. What if the employee just leaves? You live in there. and then like the other day, the oxygen wasn't flowing from my mask because you put an oxygen mask on in there and the oxygen wasn't flowing that much and it was kind of hot in there. And I was like, am I getting air? Am I like, wait, okay, think about this. What if the employee like messes it up and turns off the air, you know? I mean, and then you get the bends because they've got to bust you out of there. I mean, listen, if you are not afraid of that a little bit, then I don't even know what to tell you. So my doctor has been giving me meds to help me get through this. Guys, I'm high as a kite when I'm in that thing. And it's for me. And, you know, not doing drugs is, you know, kids, drugs have their place. Just say sometimes no, just say maybe to no, I'm kidding. But listen, kids, don't do drugs. But if you ever have to be locked in the Ocean Gate sub for 2 hours at a time, multiple days per week, maybe do a little bit of drugs. And that's the only case in which it's okay, kids. So here's what I've learned, friends, about hyperbaric therapy and claustrophobia. So stupid. Here's what I've learned. Even when I'm medicated, I'm pretty close to a panic attack, and I've got 2 hours in there. And So how do you stave off the panic attack? Well, they do have Wi-Fi, so lots of TikTok, but there are these moments. Oh, I'm sorry, I should say lots of YouTube Shorts, which is my favorite platform to scroll. Yes, YouTube Shorts, big favorite of mine. You have a moment sometimes when you're in the Ocean Gate tube where you're like, I want out right now. You look at the metal walls and how thick they are, and you realize that your life is in someone else's hands. Like they could turn off the air in here and you don't have a way out because the handle opens from the outside, not the inside. And if you let that thought go, you are in big trouble because you're going to start having a full-blown panic attack. And again, even if you were to be having a mental break inside that sub, 20 minutes to decompress. So what do you do? Really, what this overarching question is how do you reject thoughts that aren't good for you? And this can go into people who are trying to improve their lives. Like if they have an addiction to, thinking about bad things, like something, let's say you're a kleptomaniac. Is that the people who steal or whatever? And so you walk into a store and you start like thinking about everything you could steal. Or like a lot of men have addictions to, let's say, adult content. And so that thought might come to mind. Or people might think, I don't know, like people who are trying not to drink or something, they might think about, oh, that would feel so good, a little gin and tonic right now. So a lot of us struggle with this, whether or not you are currently trapped in a metal tube that you can't get out of. And hey, welcome to all my listeners who are trapped in metal tubes. This is a metal tube trapped in safe space. How do you not think about wanting to get out or stealing that fur coat or having a drink or looking at inappropriate content? When that thought comes to mind, how do you reject it? How do you get it out of there? Because it's kind of like how they say, there's that old saying that if someone says, don't think about pink elephants, well, what are you thinking about? You're thinking about pink elephants. So just being like, I tried it. Don't think about how you're trapped in a tube with no way out. Like, you could pretty quickly have a very serious mental break, like inpatient care level mental break, if you let that go. So what do you do? One of the things that I have found really helpful for rejecting thoughts that you don't want to start spiraling. Oh, by the way, for those of you who struggle with depression and anxiety, this is also, you know how it is. Like you'll be having a nice day and then your thoughts are like, but what if everyone died? It's like that kind of, that's what it's like to have anxiety. It's like you're just trying to have a nice day and like then something horrible comes to mind. So how do you not perseverate on that? There is some race car driver, this is attributed to Mario Andretti, but who knows who actually said it, doesn't matter. A race car driver said that, when you're in the race car, you have to focus on the road, not the wall. He said young race car drivers are often so worried about hitting the wall that they're looking at the wall. And so they're going through the track at like 120 miles per hour. We don't know what that is in kilometers per hour. I only know freedom units. I'm sorry. There will be no. It's very fast and it's many kilometers per hour. So these young drivers will be going around the track at 120 miles per hour, very, very fast, and they're so worried about hitting the wall that as they're whizzing around, they're looking at the wall. They're like, oh, don't hit the wall, don't hit the wall, don't hit the wall. Well, what do you think happens? They hit the wall. So he said his advice to young drivers was always focus on the road. Do not think about the wall. Think about the road, the road, the road, the road. Now, so how does that pertain to the thoughts that we don't want to crash into, so to speak? This actually, it really helped me when I was stuck in the tube and I was actually thinking of telling you guys this. I often go through my day and I'm like, oh, I'm going to tell my podcast listeners that this and that. I think about you guys all the time. And I was thinking, oh, I've got to tell them this because it actually helped me in the moment. This was not a pie in the sky theory. This actually helped me when I was about to have a panic attack. I thought, okay, right now I'm focusing on the wall. Quite literally, I'm focusing on the walls that are entombing me in a place that I can't get out of. How do I focus on the road? What is the road in this situation? And what I found was that the road in this case for me was not only the benefits that I would get out of doing this hyperbaric therapy, like not looking like a freak, but also the sense of power that I had over the situation, thinking, no, I chose this. I choose to be here. I am an active participant in this. Nobody threw me in this tube and like locked the door and threw away the key. I chose this. And then I really, with that feeling of rejecting victimhood, and that was very important for me, rejecting victimhood, reminding myself, I got in here of my own free will. I made the appointment. This is my choice. I do have control over this situation. And yes, it would take 20 minutes, but I could get out of here. I have control. So in that spirit, I started to imagine the oxygen really going deep into my cells. I imagined like having a nice smile again. I imagined not looking like the Joker. And I really tried to imagine on a cellular level, just my tissues being just full of oxygen and healthy. And I even tried to get some psychosomatic effects going on of, man, I feel healthier. I feel stronger. Man, I bet I could lift a 10-pound weight with my trainer instead of the 5 pounds I've been crushing, you know? And for me, that was the road. Feeling, even if honestly, I knew I was kind of making it up a little bit, but putting myself in that delusional state of like, yeah, oh, I can feel it. I can actually feel myself. Like, man, I feel younger. Man, this is like taking 10 years off. I feel like I could run a marathon. I never would, but I could, like, theoretically. And again, I kind of knew I was telling myself stories, but I insisted on really getting lost in the fantasy. And that's what it is when you're trying to not let thoughts take over your life. You're going to be lost in one fantasy or another. The question is, which fantasy are you going to allow yourself to get lost in? It's which fantasy are you going to allow yourself to get lost in? So again, if you're, for people, this is an easy one for me to imagine. For people who struggle with alcohol and they're trying not to drink, you can get lost in the fantasy, so to speak, of, man, if I made that drink, I would feel like, for those of us who have, who gravitate towards alcohol, when you have that drink at the right time of day that's made just the right way, it really makes you feel like you have no problems. Life is perfect. You're perfect. Like, who even needs a face? You know, who needs a smile? Like, who cares? So you can get lost in that fantasy. And it can be hard to stop those thoughts of how good you would feel. But this is what I've learned from being in the tube, to switch the fantasy. And it takes some work, and it requires a lot of intention. So when I'm trying not to drink, you guys know I do intermittent sobriety. So when I'm trying not to drink, I get myself lost in a different fantasy immediately. So just like when I have that ping in the tube of like, I'm going to die, get me out of here. Like, so that's a ping that comes up. When I have that ping of, oh man, I could go into the kitchen right now and make the perfect gin and tonic. All right, so I have that ping. Oh, that would feel so good. Immediately, instead of following the ping down that fantasy, and in the case of being trapped in the tube, that's a negative fantasy, like I'm going to run out of here, I'm going to die, I can't get out of here. Instead of going into that fantasy, I switch fantasies. So in the tube, I go into the fantasy of, oh man, I think I actually look younger already. Like, look at what this is doing for my skin. Like, oh my gosh, I can feel the oxygen getting into my gallbladder is healthier. I don't even know where my gallbladder is, but I feel like it is getting healthier. This is amazing. And then, like let's say when I want a drink, I switch to the fantasy of how good I'll feel the next morning. I imagine getting out of bed, and in this fantasy, I'm like not who I actually am. I imagine being one of those influencer girls who's like, hey guys, this is a morning in my routine. So I start with my matcha latte, and we all know I would never actually do that even when I'm not drinking. But I go into that fantasy of imagining, you know what? I'll get up an hour earlier and I'll do my journal speak and I'll go for a little walk and I'm going to listen to, my favorite podcast and some great music. And so I switch into that fantasy. I imagine myself being at a weight that I'm really happy with, which is easier when I'm not drinking, and just having that clarity of thought and not having a headache. And so you switch fantasies. So whatever thoughts you are trying to stop, if it's some sort of vice or sin or whatever you want to call it, that you don't want to go down that path, as soon as you feel that ping of either the dopamine you would feel if it's something you want to do, or if it's the case of anxiety, phobias, things like that, if it's the anti-dopamine hit, whatever it is, that the fear hit of like, oh, this terrible thing might happen, just say, nope, we're switching fantasies. We're switching fantasies. So in the case of if you're afraid something bad might happen, switch into the fantasy of, okay, but what if this thing that I'm fearing, what if it is actually the polar opposite? Like it turns out not only good, but better than I could expect, because nobody knows the future. So it could, we don't know for sure. It won't turn out better than you could have ever imagined. So you switch to that fantasy. So that is how I've learned to not look at the wall, but look at the road. That it's when you're looking at the wall, you're going down the fantasy of that, that initial thought that wants to take over. You're focusing on that. And when you look at the road, you are actively choosing to really immerse yourself in the fantasy of the more productive, positive train of thought. So that is how I have not had a complete mental break being in the tube. Did we have any other media? I thought I had. So we showed the ominous door shutting moment, and we showed the picture of the tube, and we showed getting in. Is there any other media, Caitlin, that I missed with that?
Picture from being in the tube?
Oh, yeah. Here, you guys can see. Here's me with my... Oh, yeah, that's just the... Okay, yeah. No, that's fine. Yeah, that's good. Okay, so, yeah, no, it's horrifying. It's the Ocean Gate sub, and I have to be sedated in order to do it. No, but, actually... I should, before we go on to the main topic, I should say that when I came up with that insight that I've been so excited to share with you, I didn't have anyone to drive me that day. So I was stone cold on nothing at all in the tube. And that is how I staved off a panic attack, by doing the look at the road, not the wall, switching fantasies. Cause it's 2 hours, guys. It's 2 hours that I am in there. And I had a couple of moments where I actually broke into a cold sweat because the fear was coming over me. But I was able to switch it, and it worked without drugs. That would be so lame if I'm giving you advice and then it turns out at the end of it, like, I did take 4 Valiums. It's this works even when you are not on anything. Okay, before we get into the main topic, episode 75 of the Village Hustle Patreon is up. And this is the last one that I pre-taped before I became hideous. So you can, let's all bon voyage to what Jen used to look like. Bon voyage to hot Jen. That's all done now. And episode 75 of the Village Hustle Patreon is where I do that. Let's see. What am I talking about? Let's see. Oh, yeah. Okay. Sorry. I had to read my notes here. It's really hard to read with an eye patch, guys. Sorry. When you walk around with feelings, this is what I was talking about on the episode 75 of the Village Hustle Patreon. When you walk around feeling like you're not enough and beating yourself up, and actually this seamless tapestry of a podcast, this relates to what we're talking about in the main topic, like you're not feminine enough, you're not like other women, you're not like other mothers. Certainly there is a place in life for self-reflection and self-improvement. I'm a huge fan of it. Yes, we should admit our flaws and the ways that we can improve. But if you have developed a habit of self-condemnation where it's kind of most of your waking hours are thinking about what you did wrong, wow, what a bad mother you were this morning, or what a bad dad you were, like you don't make enough money or whatever. If you just kind of have a habit of self-condemnation, you are sending your nervous system signals of danger. This is going back into the journal speak that I've been so into, the Nicole Sachs, all of that. That is an insight I got from Nicole Sachs that has been very life-changing to me, that you really want to be careful about self-condemnation versus healthy self-improvement and self-reflection. Because if you're just walking around thinking, I'm not enough, I'm doing it wrong, that is going to start impacting your physical health. Because the way Nicole Sachs explains it, which I think is very articulate, is the subconscious messages, sending yourself subconscious messages that you need to be different than you are, that your circumstances must be different than they are, sends your nervous system signals of danger. And if your nervous system thinks that you are in danger for the vast majority of your waking hours, you're not supposed to live like that. Like, that is going to get very unhealthy, physically unhealthy, very quickly. So episode 75 of the Village Hustle Patreon, it just came out this past Monday. I was talking about that sort of thing. And again, I pre-taped that before the face hideousness. And that is the last pre-tape. So I'll be hideous for all the future Village Hustle Patreons forever. And again, my Patreon, when you join, it's just my content that you're joining. I've had a lot of questions lately. That's why I'm going into this. So I offer 2 levels. One is just the basic. You get the after party and you get access to my crazy live events, the State of the Dumpster Fire events. And then the higher level that is a little more expensive, but still very cheap. Like, I should charge 10x at least what I charge, is the Village Hustle level. And you get all of the base level content. And then additionally, once a week, I create a video that's a little more practical. Like, okay, how do I make my life work? Work-life balance. How do I make family stuff work? What systems am I using? And you can tell from my appearance, I have life all figured out. So why wouldn't you want to join my Patreon, where I give you life advice? Hang on, I should redo this as like, here, Caitlin, we can clip this for an advertisement. For those of you listening on audio, you just have to imagine I'm wearing an eye patch, and like I look like a terrorist with my face covered up with a black mask. Let's see, and I'll do my radio announcer voice. Hey guys, I'm Jen Fulwiler. Join my Patreon at the Village Hustle level, and you can figure out how to make your life turn out exactly like my life has turned out. You can be just like me. There, so we can clip that. Run that as an ad. $5,000 on ads for that right now. All right, so go get on my Patreon, patreon.com/theisisjen. This is Jen. Okay. And that link is also in the show notes. So, I'm sorry, I can't read with my eye patch. What does that say? It looks like it says something really inappropriate, but yeah, I think, okay, I just can't read. So, here's the main topic. I think that it is really important that women honor their feminine energy and that men honor their masculine energy, and that you honor that energy in your significant other, whatever, if you're married, if you're just dating, whatever. But I also think that it is so important to understand the wide variety of what different masculine energy versus feminine energy can look like. Like let's take men, for example. Thomas Edison, who invented the light bulb. I mean, he was a scientist. He was kind of an obsessive person. It literally took him like 997 tries to get what he was to get what he was going for with that. So if you imagine a man who has that kind of absent-minded professor, kind of staying indoors in his lab and thinking about things and fussing over things. That is one type of masculine energy. And Thomas Edison was a great man. Emphasis on the word man. That is a masculine thing to do. What he did, the way he focused and was giving back to humanity, that is a great manly masculine man. That is a different way of being masculine than, say, Julius Caesar. And I'm not saying that Julius Caesar was like, like we all want our men to be like Julius Caesar. Like he was not the most morally upright person, but he certainly is someone who is considered masculine. And of course, there have been great warriors and generals throughout history who were violent men. That was what they had to do in their time to defend their homelands. The Spartans, the 300 Spartans who all lost their lives trying to slow down the Persians coming into their country. I mean, that's a very masculine thing to do, to give your life to defend your homeland in a very, very violent way. And that is a way of being masculine, and that is one option for being masculine. But it is not the only option. And so, and I give the masculine example specifically because I think for women, and I think most people listening are women, although I have a solid contingent of male listeners. So I want to note that.
Yeah.
But I do think for the women, when you hear me say that about men, you're like, oh yeah, of course, yeah, obviously. I mean, there are all sorts of different types of men. There's the scientist man, and there's the warrior man, and there's the poet man. The great poets throughout history. Shakespeare had a different vibe than Julius Caesar versus Thomas Edison. All of these were masculine, manly men in their own ways. And I think for women, they say, yeah, well, obviously. But then when you think about yourself as a woman, you're like, no, there's only one way to be a woman. It's that one influencer that I follow on Instagram, and I am completely failing at that. No, girls, the same thing applies to you as it applies to men. So you guys know I'm from the Catholic ghetto, so I have a lot of saint references. And so, for example, Catherine of Siena was a real smack talker. When the Pope, so for a while, and even if you're not Catholic, just stick with me because the point is about feminine energy. The Pope for a while left Rome, and he went to a place in France. There's actually a wine called Chateauneuf du Pape, and it means new house of the Pope, because the Pope left Rome and went to France, and a lot of people were mad about it. And Catherine of Siena wrote him one of the most smack-talking letters I have ever read. It was like, she was like, we can smell your stench all the way down here in Italy. I mean, talking to a pope. And I mean, she was just, she didn't care. I mean, she was fiery. And Teresa of Avila, she was Spanish, and she founded a whole order, an order of nuns. And everything she had to deal with was a nightmare. It was just one absolute nightmare after another. And there's this famous story that at one point, she was in a carriage in a rainstorm, and the carriage hit a rock or something, and she was actually thrown out of the carriage into the mud. And supposedly she turned to the heavens and looked at God and said, if this is how you treat your friends, no wonder you have so few of them. And she is a canonized saint. So, but then of course we have saints, there's a saint named, Therese of Lisieux. And for those of you who don't know about Catholic stuff, saints are real people. These aren't fictional, oh, she was a fairy. These are real living, breathing people who lived, and we have reason to think that they're in heaven. That's why we call them saints. Okay, so these are not fictional characters. These are actual historical people who lived. So Therese of Lisieux was so quiet and shy that when she passed away at a young age, and she was a nun, and one of the other nuns in the little convent that she lived in was like, what? Oh, I'd never heard of her. Did not realize she was, that Therese was a nun there, because she was just so quiet and retiring. So she called herself, or people call her, the little flower, because she was like, yeah, I'm not a big, bold person. I'm not one of the roses, or one of the big audacious flowers. I'm just I'm I'm one of the little ones, and that's who I am, and that's good. So, and another cool thing. Listen, if you guys could just convert to Catholicism, okay? Look, it'll you know what? Here, you should convert to Catholicism because it'll help you understand the references on this podcast better. And I think that's really the main reason. Okay. So, one of the things that I also found cool about Catholicism, and remember, I was a lifelong atheist, like born and raised atheist. One of the things I really thought was interesting is that in historical Christianity, which is Catholicism, and same thing, there are all of these different titles for Mary. And in fact, Caitlin, can you Google titles of Mary? Mm-hmm. But it's like Our Lady of Victory, Our Lady of Champion, Our Lady of, there's Our Lady of Guadalupe of different places, but there's Our Lady of Mercy. And there's all of these different ways that we imagine Jesus's mother and the different energies that she can bring. Like, what are some of the others, Kate? Did you come up with any?
Mother of Good Counsel.
Yeah.
Our Lady of the Rosary, Our Lady of Sorrows, Our Mother of Perpetual Help.
Yeah. Oh, Our Lady of Wisdom.
Our Lady of...
Yeah.
I'm not even going to say that. We don't need another repeat.
What? Yeah, it's nothing inappropriate. It's like,
no.
Yeah, she just wasn't sure how to pronounce it. I was like, what? Like, okay. So, yeah. I thought that was really interesting that there are these depictions of Mary, holding a sword and stepping on the head of the serpent. Like, now we're getting really into Catholic ghetto stuff because like she's the new Eve. Okay, well, whatever. I'm losing all of you who are not Catholic. Nobody cares. But I'm just saying become Catholic so that you can get these podcast references. But the point is that even in historical Christianity, like going back to the very beginning, you are encouraged to imagine this Jesus's mother, who plays a very important role in salvation history, as having these different types of feminine energy. Our Lady of Sorrow is the energy of, really you're letting your heart break for all the terrible things that happen in the world and doing penance and just really letting yourself sit with the sad things that happen in the world. And then these depictions of Mary where she's holding a sword and trampling on the head of the serpent that's a different energy. That is a very strong, powerful energy. And so we are encouraged to think of her as having all these different types of feminine energy. Okay, it hit the special sound effect for when I'm done with Catholic ghetto talk. So this is something that my friend and I were talking about, because again, this all started, as I said at the very beginning of the podcast, this all started when my friend said that what happened to my face was because I am too much in my masculine energy. And what I have come to with how to be a little more feminine and embrace my feminine energy in a way that is authentic to me, I think that it involves combining two things. And by the way, for my male listeners, and yes, I do have some, you can imagine everything I'm saying. Just apply it to the masculine. I think that some of the hallmarks of feminine energy are loving people in a particularly maternal way. And by maternal, I do not mean what weird trad podcast bros say is maternal. I mean maternal in the sense of having an openness to listening to other people, having a special patience with other people, having a tendency toward great mercy for other people. Even for those of you who are not mothers, if you're female and you've ever had a younger sibling or a younger cousin or niece or nephew, that you just felt that there's a certain type of warmth that is a maternal warmth that you can feel for people, even if you have never even if you've never had a child. It is a certain type of warmth. And I do believe that all women have it. I have said before that when I was in my 20s, I swore up and down that I had no maternal energy, no maternal instincts. And looking back, I think it was unhealthy that I thought that and said that. And that was a product of me being part of corporate high-tech culture and kind of wanting to fit in, wanting to seem like I'm a modern feminist. I'm a modern woman. I have no maternal energy at all. I think that attitude to say that there's nothing feminine, there's nothing maternal within you is, I think it's false, and I think that is unhealthy, because back then there was maternal energy within me that I could have fostered. I just didn't know how to look for it. And again, now I see that it's a certain type of very caring warmth that you can foster for people that is very unconditionally accepting. And I'm actually not going to describe it too much more, because I do believe it's something sacred and it is something that cannot fully be described. But I do think this. I think every woman has it somewhere in them. You can be the most sciencey, mathy, corporate, like you were destined to be CEO of a Fortune 500 company and you're going to be great at it. And that's true. That's all well and good. But somewhere within you, you have this warm, feminine, motherly energy. And the question is, how do you express that in a way that is authentic to you? So I used to beat myself up all the time about the fact that I didn't express maternal energy in the way Instagram influencers do. You know, I wasn't floating around in a beautiful skirt and having a cup of tea and speaking softly in a nice, light, feminine voice. And, you know, I was like walking around in my jeans, having a triple shot of espresso, and then being really wired and yelling at everyone in my deep voice, you know, and so I used to think like, oh, I'm the worst mother. But what I came to see is that when I stopped beating myself up and I said, okay, there has to be a way that I can express this same energy as the lovely woman who walks around in the skirt, but in a way that's authentic to me, I started to see ways that I could express that warmth that came naturally to me. So, for example, my love language is never going to be like cooking and cleaning, and I shouldn't say never, but in general, that is not how I express love. But I started to take my analytical side, for example. I am a great listener, and I really enjoy having long conversations with kids. And I know some moms who are they have the perfect house and it's all decorated and it's clean and nice. And some of the women I know who are like that, they do struggle to sit still long enough to have very, very long conversations. And that is totally fine, because they are expressing their feminine love and energy in a different way. But for me, I ain't cleaning jack. I'm not cleaning anything, but I will sit down and chat with a tween or a teen or a kid of any age and have like a 2-hour long conversation about something they're wrestling with, and really being a great listener and asking questions and providing a non-judgmental space. And you know, I might need to judge a little bit if crazy stuff is going on, but I also, as an aside, I save my judgment for other conversations. Like I don't interrupt them like, hey, you shouldn't have done that, or why is your friend doing that? I just listen in the initial conversation and follow up if I need to. Also, things like handwritten notes. I like words. I like writing. And so I can send even just meaningful texts. I mean, because I have a way with words, I think I am able to, you know, just send a text to one of my kids that really hits the nail on the head and makes them feel good, or write them a note or send them a nice email or things like that. And so I am expressing that warm. It's warm energy. It is feminine energy, and it is maternal energy, but it is expressed in a different way than like baking a loaf of bread, or, you know, wearing a skirt or something like that. And I think that there's a certain, speaking of appearances, I think there is a certain softness that all women should have, but it doesn't have to be the kind of, you know, light cherub sort of appearance and the flowy skirts and all that. You might just add a little bit of softness with the way you do your hair, or an accessory, or a little element that you add to your clothing, but it doesn't have to be going all the way one direction. And I think this is so important to point out, because one of the things, again, what is rule number one on this podcast when we're talking about any matters of morality, faith, anything like that? You always have to ask yourself, is this accurate morality and theology, or is this a podcast bros fetish? And one of the things that you hear podcast bros talk about, both in secular and in trad religious culture, is some of these guys just have a type. And we've talked about the Kitchener essences. There are different women can have different essences. So this guy Kitchener describes them as the different essences are dramatic, gamine, which is kind of being like a tomboy, natural, classic, romantic, ingenue, or angelic. And again, this podcast has gone on a bit long, so I'm not going to go into what each one of those essences are, but you kind of get the idea. Like there's the Marilyn Monroe type, you know, very soft, feminine, talking like this. That would be a very angelic energy. And then there's the more, I am clearly dramatic, yelling, little bit more of a masculine touch in there, tall, big, you know, that's, but it's still feminine, but just in a more dramatic. I mean, I even have sharp features, like sharp cheekbones, deformed face now. I mean, it's all coming together. Me being a female villain, it's all coming together. But it is still feminine. It's still feminine. And a lot of these podcast bros have a certain type, and the Kitchener type would probably be angelic. So they like women who, I mean, they even have like a physical softness to them, like hourglass figures, more round features on their face, petite, you know, very soft spoken, like, yes, you know, blah, 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 hello. Like, and that's fine. That is perfectly legit to have that as a type, to have, to enjoy being around women who express their feminine essence in a very classic kind of, in the West and in the United States and in Europe, a very traditional in the past couple hundred years idea of what feminine energy looks like. But the problem, and you see this with podcast bros and women, frankly, across the spectrum, is because people like to get clicks to their videos to make money, because some people actually make money on their podcasts instead of leaving money on the table constantly. It gets you more views to take an extreme position. Like every woman, you know, the podcast bros will be like, men just aren't attracted to women who aren't like this and that. And they basically describe a woman who has that angelic essence of the Kitchener types. And it's like, no, so by men, you mean you. You are not attracted to women who are 6 feet tall and have size 12 feet and deep voices and yell like that. Okay, that's fine. Like that is, I am not your type, but you're just being a podcast bro and trying to get clicks. And the reality is that there are a lot of different ways for women to be feminine. And so that is message number one to end this podcast. Message number one is be very careful when you're listening to influencers talk about how to be more in your feminine energy, or for my male listeners, in your masculine energy. Be very careful and just remember they're all trying to get clicks. And so they say extreme things, and they are completely overlooking the fact that for both men and women, there are all different types of different feminine energy and masculine energy. And the second thing is just be assured that if you find that you are not fitting in with the mainstream, the podcast ideas of what it means to be a man or what it means to be a woman, I guarantee you that if you just, maybe even journal about this. You know how much I love journaling. Like, just try to identify what is the essence of being truly feminine? What is the essence of being truly masculine? And then just start asking yourself, how can I bring that into life in ways that feel authentic for me? So if you're a very sporty woman, a mountain climbing woman, there are ways that you can be perfectly, beautifully feminine. It will just look very different from the homesteading woman who wears the long dresses and bakes the sourdough bread, but it will be just as feminine and just as equally authentic. Now, hang on, Caitlin, but before we hit the exit music, I did say that I would get into interacting with spouses and how to, authentically respect the gender of, your husband or wife or whatever. But there's just too much content on this podcast. There's too much goodness. So we will save that for a future episode. But basically, you get the idea. Don't listen to silly podcast bros' idea about what it means to authentically embrace the energy of your gender. That is a great place to conclude on. Go ahead and hit the exit music. Patreon.com/IsisGen. This Friday, January 31st, we're doing a live event. I'm going to have a complete mental breakdown. So that'll be fun. And we will be back with you next week with another fine episode here on the Jen Fulwiler Show.